No one ever told me that I need to get out of debt. No one ever told me I need to budget my money.
No, we're not given financial education, right? It's on purpose to a degree, because if you're stupid with finance, you're easier to make money off of.
Nobody ever told me that I need to save and invest for the future. I saw this story today where, in so many words, this was the headline. And right away, I'm just like screaming on the inside, like, I've been saying that for years, you know? And then you still have people like this who come out in 2026 and say, well, I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, to a degree, there's no like you can't really put the onus on someone else to go and get this information, right? You have to take responsibility of your life.
And sometimes it's really not their fault, guys. Like, to be
True.
honest,
This is true too. This is true too.
people are not taught these things in school. Nobody learns how to manage money for the most part, although they are mandating that here in Florida now, I guess, in order to graduate high school. You have to have like a financial literacy course.
Yeah, they give them the basics on like credit scores, debts, good loans, bad loans. It's one of the best things that they've done in Florida in a long time, right? Like that's like basic life skills. Like, what's the point of knowing, algebra and calculus, but you don't know what a credit score is? Like, that's more beneficial to the outcome of an average person.
Which is pretty great, but that's kind of a new thing. Anybody who's in the workforce today probably didn't have that information available to them before they actually started earning money as an adult. And the problem is that so many people were just told that if they went to school, if they got a good job, that guarantees you're going to have a good job tomorrow. And the problem is people build their entire lifestyle around how much money they make.
Yeah, it's so true, right? The era of stable careers and just, being the one guy doing the one thing for 40 years and retiring, that is over, right? You got to be constantly reinventing yourself.
Everyone's guilty of that for the most part, guys. Very few people save the lion's share of their income. Most people just don't do it, either because they can't or because they won't.
Yeah, I would say it's 50-50, right? Most people don't do it because the lifestyle creep, right? As they make more, they spend more. And then a large percentage of people, like 80%, is going to rent, right? There's not really that much in the budget they could cut at that point.
This example story is from a woman who used to work at Meta. And she was hired in 2020, and then she got laid off in February of 2025 during one of many of Meta's layoffs.
Let me guess. She was spending too much and just not going to make anywhere near what she was making at Meta.
And she thought, well, it's going to be a piece of cake for me to find a new job.
Right, I have Meta on my resume.
Worked at one of the largest tech companies in the world, and I have an amazing resume.
Honestly, it doesn't mean guts. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, you have to have real skills, right? If you're just at Meta pushing around emails, which is a large chunk of people, it doesn't matter anymore.
But the reality is she spent more than a year unemployed after that layoff, which wasn't that long ago, right?
Hey, a year's not that bad, all things considered,
She says that I never anticipated being unemployed for over a year after that layoff. I assumed that coming from Meta with my skill set, there's no way I'd be searching for a job that long, so I underestimated the job market. And that really is the epitome of what so many white-collar workers in particularly are facing today.
It's a white-collar bloodbath, right? You're way better off going into the trades, even if you have to start lower, because there's just no way someone could come in tomorrow and replace a master electrician or a master plumber, right? Like, that's definitely the move. White-collar jobs are getting left and right.
Now there's countless stories of people just like her who worked at Google or Meta or Amazon or Microsoft or any of these big tech companies and have recently been laid off.
I think they're going to come around and rehire them, though. They're coming to find that AI is not the panacea that they thought it was, and that the productivity gains, yes, are greater, but there is a limit, right? You still need the people to go out and direct the AI and do the thing.
A lot of these people thought they were going to be back to work in just a few months, only to find themselves out of work for 6 months to a year or more. Now,
that's a good way to burn through savings too, yeah.
Luckily for her, she didn't actually survive all of this by finding another job. She was able to get creative and create new sources of income. She launched a Substack. She started a podcast. She built a personal brand. She sold a startup. She performed consulting work. She basically became self-employed, which is what I encourage everybody to do.
Yes, I think AI is going to make the mom and pop thing come back, right? Everyone's going to be their own little miniature business because you have an AI bot doing marketing, another one doing this thing, that thing. You got to go out there and build it yourself. That's what I'm trying to do with this channel. So because I know a ton about finance, so I love talking about it.
In this environment, because it is going to be a far more stable situation for your life, even if you have to work harder and have multiple sources of income, just because of how volatile everything is. She was
Correct. With the destruction of AI companies, like a lot of these companies are just going to be getting one after another. You can't rely on that income anymore, right?
kind of forced into being self-employed because the traditional job market just wasn't providing enough opportunities for someone like her. And a lot of people like this are actually being forced into entrepreneurship, which I think everyone who ends up getting forced into this situation will probably agree in the end that it was a far superior setup. Why didn't I do this earlier? But
yes, I think it's like the initial ripping off the Band-Aid is terrible, but once you get going, it's way better, right? You don't have to ask, can I take a day off, please? Like, oh, you're your own man, your own boss. Like, there's something primal about that.
the fact that she also claims ignorance, that nobody ever told her that you need to budget and save and live below your means, and all of this is kind of crazy. And
It is. To get to that level working at Meta with she's probably making 150, 200K, and not to know you got to save a little? Like, come on, are you living under a rock?
obviously, coming from a big tech company, she probably had a pretty healthy salary. And when you build your whole lifestyle around that, it's a big problem. I've been repeatedly
Yes.
telling people for years now to pay off debt while you have the extra money, build your emergency savings while you still can, cut the subscriptions that you don't need, stop inflating your lifestyle every time you get a raise, avoid locking yourself into big monthly car payments or any other big monthly obligation, and prepare for your job to be disappearing at any moment, especially in the current state of this economy. That is more likely than ever before. And here's part of the problem, guys.
Correct. Even I'm prepping like for a layoff, right? Any day now it could happen. I just, there's just not that stability, right? We have this crazy technology that's sending people to the unemployment line.
Guys, I'm going to give you a quick little overview of why this message doesn't reach nearly as many people as it should. Obviously, I
Let's
make
say people can't control their spending. They don't want to hear the message.
these YouTube videos. But the downside of doing this, even though I actually love doing this for a living, is that my message only gets pushed out to as many people as the YouTube algorithm decides that it gets pushed out to.
Not only that, he's kind of like preaching to a choir, right? People who are already good with money love talking about money, hearing about money, watching these kind of shows, right? We're all kind of together in a circle. And people who are not good with money, they're like this. They don't even want to hear a thing about it.
And that is 100% based on how satisfied you guys who watch the video are with the video, meaning how long do you watch it for? How many of you click on it when you see it on your homepage or in the suggested feed? And how many people watch the video to the end? Give it a like, comment on it. All of those different engagement signals are what ultimately determines how far YouTube pushes the video to people like this woman who claim they never heard any of this stuff before.
I tend to disagree with him there, right? The algorithm more tries to surface videos that you're interested in, not what you need to know. Those are very different things. But he is right that we do appreciate any like or any subscriber. Like, oh, let's go! Like that, it's hype, you know.
It was too late and had to experience it the hard way. And so I do my part. I try to get this message out, but I'm at the mercy of how many people end up watching these videos, and there's nothing I can do about it.
I think he's more at the mercy of counter videos that are, just slop, AI slop videos, just trash that doesn't do anything to nourish the brain, right? He's more against the junk food content.
It other than paid promotion, which I've never done in my entire YouTube career, and I'm not going to start now. The more you guys watch my full videos and watch every video and like the video and comment on the video.
Oh man, he's really shilling for likes here. I will never do that. It's just not my style, right? You don't like me, whatever. I'm out of here. You don't want to subscribe? Get out of here. I'm more bombastic in that regard.
Then the more likelihood YouTube is going to share this with more people. That's just how it works. I'm not sitting here begging you for views or anything like that.
A little, Mike,
most
a
people
little.
could probably care less about
A little bit, but I still like you. The message this guy is bringing out is solid,
this. I'm just telling you why in 2026 that people like this woman still have never heard this type of advice, which is kind of sad. But she learned the hard way that I'm going to need to downsize. She lives in a loft-style apartment in Washington, D.C., very expensive neighborhood, and now she's going to have to get a smaller place. She's now cooking at home instead of going out all the time. She is canceling subscriptions. She's cutting any expense that's not necessary. And she's being more mindful of her spending since her entire lifestyle was built around her meta salary. Check this out.
Right. I mean, when you're pulling it, there's always this thing happens when you start pulling in crazy money. You just assume that's the way life's always going to be. I'm always going to be pulling in 250,000, right? I can't live any other way.
They have this huge soccer ball in the park here. This is Brittany Bay Park here in Miami Beach. And they got all these big soccer balls inflated around town for all the World Cup stuff. Kind of interesting. But my biggest issue with this is how many people just have to learn this the hard way, and they only learn it once it's too late. Once they're already in, $15,000 of credit card debt, and they already lost the job, and they're already getting their car repoed. That's when people finally wake up, and it just doesn't have to be that way.
Right. There's two ways of learning from your own mistakes and learning from others. Try to learn from other people's mistakes, right? Learning yourself is the worst way to do it.
So the core issue is here that people find out all of this stuff too late. They find out the hard way, right? And especially when it comes to the job market, they find out it's a lot more competitive than they realize because they haven't had to look for a job in a few years. And now
the job market is so competitive. I've been to so many final round interviews and I just lose out because there's a lot of other good candidates, and, it's tough. It's hard. It's heartbreaking.
All of a sudden that you do, it's a major issue. And then, of course, there's this whole psychological aspect of being unemployed.
Well, I think worse is the interview process than being unemployed. Being unemployed is kind of chill. But, I wouldn't know. I've been unemployed forever. But like the psychological aspect of going through the job interview process and wanting to be accepted, that sucks.
This woman, after going through this meta layoff, says you should give yourself at least 2 weeks to process the layoff and then create some sort of an action plan of what you're...
I don't think that. I'm more of the just jump in immediately, right? Like chill for a day or two, then get it back in there, man.
Going to
get back into the fight.
Because if you sit around in isolation, the unemployment can really destroy your confidence and your self-worth. And that's just another way to show us that losing a job in this environment right now isn't just financial, guys. Well,
don't let your job be your self-worth. That should never be that. You have worth independent of your job, right? It's just a job. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Life goes on with or without the job. Don't ever let that be your self-worth. It's your family, it's your loved ones, your friends, all the other things you can't buy. That is what life is about. That is real worth.
It also takes an emotional toll. I've talked about that a lot as well. But it just pains me to know that people just don't know this stuff in 2026. Like when I was growing up, there was...
Oh, the vast majority. I mean, we're talking like 70% of the public, or is it 80% only has like $500 in emergency fund?
There was no YouTube. There was no way to just look this stuff up and find out how to be financially savvy all for free. It's just that information wasn't available.
No, you learn through your parents. Now there's just so much information, right? You could easily figure it out.
I think YouTube came out the year I graduated high school, so it was already too late for me, I ended up learning a lot of these lessons the hard way as well, but I'm also a very fast learner and never got myself into extremely bad situations either. But because of how weak this economy is and how weak the job market is, Market Watch, they just came out with a new warning for Americans saying that the average American should have at least $20,000 in an emergency savings account right now, which we know basically no one has. So that,
I mean, the average is like $400, right? It's like one super fancy dinner for four, right? That's what everyone's got prepared.
Might be a nice goal to aim towards, but by no means do most people come anywhere close to achieving this.
Look at Florida. Que bonito. Beautiful. Being on the water.
The advice of yesteryear was to have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. I don't think that's enough anymore.
I sleep at night with a 2-year one going. Like, all right, I could weather 2 years. Easy, no problem. And that's operating at full capacity.
Personally, I think you need to have a 12-month emergency fund, which again is
12 is good.
Very ambitious. Is actually more than the $20,000 mark that we're talking about here. According to the BLS, which their data has been questionable, especially when we're talking about the labor market, but using their data about the cost of things, which is probably a lot higher in reality, they say that between groceries, housing, transportation, childcare or elder care, healthcare, and insurance, is approaching $5,000 a year in the US, which I think is a very underestimated number for most people. So
That's nothing. There's no way that number's correct. There's no way.
why they're saying that $20,000 minimum is what you should have on hand in case you lose a job. That should be your new emergency fund benchmark. And why?
And that's probably a good goal for most people, right? But man, it is so easy to burn through 20,000 with these rents, with these costs of living. Like you're eating peanut butter and jellies, you're staying in, you're doing ramen, you're watching Netflix. Like you are not to leave the house. That kind of attitude.
Why is that the case? Because of inflation, because of the cost of living, because how much everything has gone up in an extremely short period of time.
It's like, you got your 20,000, but then inflation's eating through it as fast as you eat through it. It's double. Yeah.
I mean, look at this chart here, guys. These numbers are jaw-dropping. Like, just for a single person, you could be spending $5,000 a year on groceries. Another 14,000, which is very conservative, on housing. Another 4,000 on utilities. Another almost 10,000 a year on transportation. Another 4,500 on healthcare. So just the annual cost of the basics for the average single person.
Wait, let's go back to that chart really quick. This is just crazy, right? Shelter 14,000, so that's like about a 1,000 something, 1,100-ish. No way. It's like you get destroyed just on your rent, right? Because most people's rents are 2 to 3 G's a month. Like this is way low. Average basic cost of living 37,000. Now it's probably closer to 45-50. Easily.
Transportation. Another 4,500 on healthcare.
Right.
So just the annual cost of the basics for the average single person household has already approached almost $38,000. That's a lot.
And that's low, right? That's so low. I mean, I'm saying it's 50, 55.
I mean, if you make under that or even close to that amount, you are living in poverty wages right now. That's the reality. You need to be earning double that to have any shot at having a decent life where you can afford things and not feel completely squeezed by everything. So you need to be earning at least $70,000 a year just to be comfortable. And
I think the true number now is closer to 100,000, right, to really be comfortable. I mean, if you're a single person in a major city, it needs to be 150. That's like the equivalent of making 50K.
that makes you comfortable. Doesn't make it so it's easy to become a homeowner. Doesn't make it that it's so easy to save for retirement. It just means you have some breathing room in your budget and don't have to finance every little thing in your life and live off of debt in perpetuity. And a lot of people are pretty far away from that. It says the average American is only holding about $8,000 between checking accounts, savings accounts, and money market accounts, going back to the 2022 data, which is already 4 years old, and people have experienced a tremendous increase of everything since then. So you know that's going to be even less now.
Yeah, 8,000 is just, man, that's scary. I mean, good for those people. At least they got something, but things are tough out there. I think we all kind of feel that and know that instinctively, right? You don't even need this data to tell us, but it helps. He's laying it out well.
For inflation, the official inflation numbers, they say that would be $9,200 today. I'd be willing to bet people have less than that $8,000 now, 4 years later, because a lot of it's probably already gone towards some sort of surprise or emergency or cost of living hike. We also recently saw the personal savings rate basically get cut in half in the span of just 1 year, from 5.5% a year ago down to 2.6%. And a lot of people might say, well, having 20 grand in a savings account, you're missing out on all the gains in the market and things like that. But the reality is,
sorry about that, up in the quality here.
You need to have liquid funds in case of an emergency. That's the whole point of an emergency account.
Yeah, it's hard to balance it too, right? Like, how much do you put into savings versus missing out gains in the market? But what if the market tanks? Like, I think you got to have the savings base first, right? Then everything else goes into the market, let it rip.
Now, you need to be able to access that with no penalties and no taxes, not borrowing from your 401k or anything like that. The financial experts, they advise people that you need to contribute enough into your workplace retirement account in order to get the full employer match until your emergency fund is filled up, until you have that extra 20 grand sitting in cash. Then you can start increasing that investment to extra once you have that $20,000 buffer. And I would say that's a pretty good rule of thumb for most people.
Yeah, I agree. I try to put as much as I can into the 401k right now. Just 'cause it's like forced savings, right? Don't touch it. Just let it ride. It's been growing a ton. And they're right, right? We're just all in this situation where inflation is just strangling you. Like that is really the overarching issue here.
20 grand's a nice cushion for people. And of course, the larger your expenses and the larger your family is, then the more sizable your emergency savings should be. Like,
Yeah, 20 grand feels a little light. I'm not gonna lie. For a single guy, like by myself, that feels fine. But if I had a family, 20 is light.
if you are a family with kids,
Right.
you might need $5,800 a month just to pay the bills. And having a 3-month emergency fund translates to having almost 18 grand just for 3 months of emergency savings, which is nothing.
And you're gonna be freaking out over those 3 months because the money is just burning through. And it's like, all right, well, what do we do when we hit the 3-month mark?
Versus a single person, that same amount of savings could be a 6-month emergency savings. And if you're retired, your biggest risk obviously isn't a job loss. You're not working anymore, but now you are more susceptible to a big health related risk that can cost you an unexpected amount of money. So
Healthcare is the #1 cause of bankruptcy, right? One big surgery, not covered. Everything you've ever saved gone.
doesn't matter which phase of life you're in, you need to have that extra money saved up, guys. And here I am talking about this again in a video themed, I didn't know about this stuff, right? But how many people are gonna see this? Let's see in a month from now how many views this video has. It's kind of unpredictable, but
It's really good to get this message out, though, because the more people are financially secure, the stronger the society and the country is,
my average over the past few months, maybe if I'm lucky, this video might get 100,000 views, which might sound like a lot to a lot of you, but in the world of YouTube, it's really not that much.
It's not, and it's like 95,000 are finance people, right? That are nerds that love listening to these kind of speeches.
Where, people regularly get millions of views on their videos. So that is only reaching a very tiny fragment of people out there. And unfortunately, it's people who are already financially savvy in many cases who know
That's what I said. Yeah, I'm reading his
this
mind.
stuff, who just like hearing it and reinforcing it. Doesn't reach a lot of new people.
It's good to hear it and reinforce it, right? I listen to a lot of the same basically stuff being churned over because I just need to keep hearing it, drill it,
Who actually need to hear it. Now let's switch gears and talk about Florida here for a minute, because Florida has already been essentially ground zero for the housing crash. We have a tremendous amount of foreclosures here. We have a tremendous amount of people in serious debt and serious delinquencies, not paying their bills. We also have unemployment becoming a bigger problem that's starting to outpace the national average. Florida's at a 4.8% unemployment rate. The national number is sitting at 4.3%. And
yeah, Florida is eking up in unemployment to a degree, and there's like a multitude of reasons. I personally think like the cost of living issue, where so many people moved in, it priced a lot of people out. And it's just like, what are the type of jobs that are really moving to Florida? The tourist industry doesn't really create a lot of high paying jobs.
it has increased 1.1% over the past year, which makes it the second fastest increase in the nation, only behind Connecticut. So now,
And that percentage only counts for the people actively looking, right? All the people that have given up are not factored into that percent. So the unemployment percent is probably like 7.
not looking too good. The problem is unemployment usually doesn't rise this fast unless something is breaking beneath the surface.
Right, unemployment starts to see the cracks into things earlier, right? Businesses like lending, when it's expensive, there's less employment. It's just harder to operate businesses.
Pretty much we only see unemployment rates spike this much when we are in a recession, which I believe we've been in one since the middle of 2022.
I tend to agree with him. We've been in a recession. It just papered over a booming stock market due to tons of money being flooded into the system. But things do not feel booming out there. I don't think anyone has that vibe personally.
The government would like to tell you otherwise.
Right.
But now
We are in an era where none of the statistics are accurate coming from the government, right? They're just saying whatever they need to say so the plebeians are not marching in the streets.
we
So
have
we're
more
not-
than 500,000 Floridians unemployed, about 532,000, and that's 124,000 more than just 1 year ago. If you take a look at this chart,
That's a lot. Because, when you think of any society, right, 20 million people, just as an example, right? 50 or 10 million are going to be children, 5 million are going to be elderly, you know, and then of that 5 that are million that are working, right? That's a huge chunk of them.
Here, you can see that Florida's unemployment tracked with the national unemployment pretty consistently going back at least to 2012, but now today it is starting to outpace the national average. And that's just in less than a year. That's the worrying part about this. And in all 67 of Florida's counties, we now have more people who are unemployed than we had just 1 year ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously who wants it trending in that direction? But I just don't see the industries, right? We did have kind of a tech sector for a little bit, but tech is cutting now. So it's kind of like who's hiring in Florida?
Turns out that the Tampa region of Florida is getting hit the hardest, in Hillsborough County and
Tampa, because tech is very fleeting, right? Tech came to Tampa, set up shop, but they were just like outposts, right? There was never the core area like you have in Silicon Valley or in New York, right? And so it's like the first places that they close down are these outposts when they start cutting, right? They're not going to necessarily get rid of the core spots yet.
Polk County, Pinellas County, Pasco County, Manatee County, and Hernando County. Those are all of the hardest hit ones in the state. And they're saying that Miami is the only place where it's not completely collapsing right now.
Because Miami's got finance money moving in, right? New York has become a bit of a hostile place for the finance community. So you're seeing a lot of them move those jobs and those industries down to Miami, right? No taxes. They don't really care what you do. And it's a beach and beautiful weather. What's not to like?
We have a 3.1% unemployment rate, which is actually better than the current national average.
Right.
But they say if you remove Miami-Dade from the equation, then Florida's unemployment would jump to 5% instead of the 4.8 that it's at right now.
So Miami's just this little outpost carrying the whole statistic.
That's not really a surprising figure with how many people have moved into Miami and how many jobs have been created here over the past few years. You've seen a lot of different companies who used to be headquartered in other major cities recently moved their operations to Miami. And
any business servicing wealthy people will take off in Miami right now. So much money has moved down there, fleeing the Northeast for taxes, you know, just the weather, all sorts of other issues, right? They're coming to Florida. Where else are they going to go?
of course, smaller towns in Florida are struggling a lot more than the bigger cities in Florida. So the counties that are seeing unemployment increase the fastest here in Florida are typically the smaller ones with less than 150,000 residents. Taylor County, Florida, they currently have an unemployment rate at 8.4%, which is one of the highest ones in the entire state. I mean, that's getting pretty close to 2008 levels of unemployment, guys.
8.1 is nuts. That is so high. I mean, that would feel like Great Depression-ish levels. I think Great Depression was like 15, but still, to us in the modern era, that's like, holy hell.
Depending on where you are, the Florida economy is getting hit hard. They're saying a large part of this is because of the cool down and the amount of construction jobs. You know, there are still parts of Florida that are seeing booms in construction. Miami is still one of them, obviously. Everywhere you turn around, there's a new house being built. It's happening right over here.
The trades cannot find enough people. The jobs are terrible paying, right? You're starting out of the gate, an electrician has 40 or 35 as a plumber. But man, if you could grind for 4 or 5 years and you get to the master level, man, you're making good money.
Across the way.
And it's like unlimited demand, really, right? We're always gonna need places to live, put electric, put plumbing in.
It's Allison Island. It's a place where only millionaires and billionaires can afford to live, as you can see by the homes here. So yeah, they're building houses. But a lot of other places where things have already cooled off and there's tons of inventory on the market, it's not happening anymore. You're really seeing development happen in areas that are really up and coming, where a lot of money is moving into. Everywhere else, the builders are abandoning the area. And rightfully so. Like, why continue building an area if you can't make any money? And
correct. There's really like a building now is more catered toward the wealthy because the margins on like, affordable housing are terrible. And so like they can't make any money. So I don't know how they're going to build more affordable housing if it's not profitable.
Construction guys here work very hard, guys. Like just me walking around making this video right now, I am drenched in sweat. Regardless of whatever the actual weather temperature says here, it says it's like 85 or 87 degrees, but it feels well over 100. The humidity now is sweltering, and I am just counting the days until I'm in California. This is my last week of shooting videos here in Miami.
The snowbird thing is huge, man. If you have the money, just be here for the 6 months of the year. It's beautiful, and peace out to the Northeast or Cali, and that's the best lifestyle. I wish I could afford it.
And then I'll be in 70-degree Tiburon, which I can't wait for. But Florida's also losing a lot of jobs in manufacturing, retail, and financial services. When you see all of these industries weaken simultaneously, then it kind of compounds the issues that we're facing.
We're in a depression. I mean, not a depression, a recession. I think it's just being papered over with boom in asset prices. But actually, at the street level, though, things don't feel that great.
So seeing a lot of people leave the state due to the high cost of living, and inbound migration has slowed down substantially. Basically, Florida is no longer the most popular place to move to like it was during the pandemic, because it's very difficult to survive in a lot of the areas where people want to live here now. But
if Florida was cheap in the pandemic, you could come to Tampa or these like Orlando, get a place in the downtown for $250,000. Now that same place is $550. You know, like the era of it being cheap is over. It's kind of relatively priced to some sort of northeastern level.
Despite all that, Goldman Sachs says this is still not a recession, guys. They're still coming out and saying, you know, this is a very bullish economy we're in. They do cite the K-shaped economy here, so they're not completely blind to what's going.
Yeah, because the people that write for these organizations now are in these high-rise towers. They're making $500,000 a year. They're so far removed from the reality on the ground for the rest of us. They have no idea what the real world is like. They're just totally disconnected. Like totally. Never more have they ever been. They don't even, like, you know, I just can't even go into it.
Even just like this billboard right here. You see this? Who can afford that, guys?
Artifacto.
I can tell you right now, just by this picture, whatever this is, I couldn't afford this, and probably 99% of people watching this couldn't afford this either. This is probably some $9-10 million penthouse condo that's been professionally designed that they're building here. Out of touch, completely out of touch. They do admit here that the tax refunds are really helping to boost consumer spending over these past couple of months. And now those refunds are starting to dry up, so that's gone. And that's why we saw retail spending come to a grinding halt recently at only a 0.
It's the second you put money in the pockets of retail, they just spend it, right? Stimmy checks, don't pay off debt. No, let's go to the mall. Let's buy Louis Vuitton or whatever, you know? It's so sad, right? I use those stimmy checks to hose down debt.
0.5% increase. And Americans are saving practically nothing. They're saving less than the rate of inflation. 2.6% savings rate in April versus a 3.8% CPI reading in April. Not good at all. And most worrying data point in their article is that real customer cash flow growth just slowed to 0.3% year over year. Now,
what does that even mean? Real customer cash flow growth? Like they're quoting all these statistics. Just walk around in a non-rich neighborhood and you just will know everything you need to know.
In other words, people don't have money. And they
exactly. He gets it. He totally gets it.
That they expect consumer spending to continue slowing throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, like duh.
And consumer spending forecasted at only 1.3% increase through the remainder of 2026. And even more worrying, they only believe that real income growth is only going to be 0.9% for the entire year of 2026.
My income grew 3.2% this year, which is nothing, right? I took a pay cut of around 4%. It's like we're just getting bled out slowly every year.
Guys, so you're going to be earning 0.9% more money while the current CPI data is at 3.8%.
But the M2 money supply grew at 6.2%. So that is the real rate of inflation, right? The expansion of the total dollars in the system. Whatever they tell you is the real rate is the fake rate. You can be assured of that.
Sounds great, huh? Essentially, your pay is going down unless you're getting a double-digit increase in salary right now.
Yeah.
And even with all this going on, Goldman Sachs is still not officially predicting a recession. They say that the labor market's still functioning, stock market wealth remains high, and some of these income distortions could fade later in the year.
Yeah, right. I mean, things are still functioning. They're correct about that, but things feel creaky, right? They don't feel that they're, moving on all cylinders right now, right? It feels rocky. Things feel like they could break at any moment.
Like how? How is any of that going to fade?
Yeah.
How do record high stock market valuations affect people that don't have money, guys. It doesn't.
Most Americans don't own stocks, so the stock market going up a record high is meaningless. It's really just most of the money is concentrated in a pool in the upper class. That's kind of what's happening.
We know this. It only affects people who are already invested and who already have a ton of wealth. But even Goldman Sachs admits here that we usually don't see these sort of circumstances between people not earning more than inflation unless we are in a recession. But they don't want to call it a recession. And
Everyone's afraid of calling it a recession. I don't get it. It's like smells like a recession, tastes like a recession, quacks like a recession. Not a recession.
I think their answer is just simple. Like, they know it's a recession. They know that we're in trouble. They just don't want to call it one because they don't want to spook people, right?
Yeah,
They
agreed.
don't want people
It'll send a panic in the system.
to be worried. They still want people to try to be more optimistic and believe things are better than they really are. But I hope this message does reach at least.
Anyways, we'll call it here. This is a good video. Just really important to save. It's really important to invest and just prepare for a crisis, right? You better have some money set aside. That's kind of what he's saying. Don't assume that you're making 200K, that it'll always be that way. You know, invest, protect yourself. Inflation is coming. I hope this was informative. Thank you, everybody.